Hi, everyone. I just want to welcome you to Webinar Wednesday. My name is Carol Ashford. I'm the Director of Marketing here at Prophesy. And I really want to just thank you for so many of you registering for the webinar and taking time out of your busy day to visit with us and learn more about what's new in your Prophesy dispatch software. What Kevin will be covering today are some new things that we've got new to the product, and also some things that have been added to the product that you may not realize are there, that we are lesser used or lesser known about features that we've added. So wanted to just give you a quick overview of all of those things and answer your questions. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Kevin Pasternak, our National Sales Manager, and he'll walk us through the software.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. I am going to go ahead and mute everybody so we have a bit of background noise. We will have a Q&A session at the end today, and so if you could do me a favor, as we go through the topics, if you do have a question on any of them, if you could just jot it down, and then we'll address all the questions at the end of the presentation. Thank you. So how do you find out about what's new in Prophesy? Well, there's really several ways. Go to the accelerator, emailed out to you. We have blog posts on mile.com. We also have blog posts on the Excelos main website, so you can get information there. We have a Yammer customer portal, and for those of you that are not members of Yammer, Yammer is very similar to a Facebook. However, it's a private service. Yammer is designed just for the Prophesy and Excelos customers. We have our own group. If any of you on the line today are not a member of Yammer, and it's a great place to exchange ideas and learn more about the software with existing customers, I would recommend that you send an email in. You can email it just to sales@mile.com. Say you want to become a member of Yammer, you want a password, and we'll get that right out to you, or you could certainly email it to me or to your account manager. The other place to get information about the software is right in the release notes. And we used to print those notes out and send them to people. However, we found that a lot of people didn't read them. We wanted to cut down on paper costs, as I'm sure a lot of you do. And so what we do now is all of the release notes go out on the disk that you get. And so when you install your software, as all of you know, if you want to read the release notes or you want to read any of the manuals, if you just click on your Start button, go to the Prophesy folder. Within there, there'll be a Prophesy documentation folder, and you can read release notes. And also, once again, all of the Prophesy manuals are there, your dispatch reference manual, fuel tax manual, all of the manuals. So you can get the information from there. You'll also receive emails from us, and we've certainly done webinars like this in the past. And one of the things that people requested at our Visions user group last year, which was in Chicago in September, was to do more webinars like this so that we kept you up to date on items in the software. Today we're going to be covering a number of subjects, but the plan going forward is to have monthly or bi-monthly sessions like this, and they'll probably be much shorter, condensed, with just one or two topics. So we won't be taking as much of your time. Some of the items we're going to cover today include some new SMPT email settings. For those of you that have traditionally emailed from the Prophesy program, you know that you had to have a local email client. Many of you used Outlook or one of the other local clients. Some of you may have experienced problems with Outlook as you upgraded to a more current version of Office, and your email stopped working. Well, the SMTP, or Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, is another process for how to send emails, and I'm going to go through and show you how to set that up within the program. We're also going to talk about some enhancements that have made to the integration to QuickBooks. That's both with pulling data out of QuickBooks, but it's also with sending data over to QuickBooks, once again based on requests that customers have made for sending additional information into QuickBooks. Customer-specific invoices. how to set up a customer so when you print an invoice for that customer, it prints on an invoice that you only want to use for that customer as opposed to your invoices that you use for the rest of your customers. A couple of items within settlements that we find have benefited some customers. We'll take a look at those. We're going to talk about fuel surcharges and how to set up a fuel surcharge and how to automate that process by using the indexes that you can bring into the program. We're going to talk about a new status that's been added to the program called pre-assignment and how that's used, both on the asset side and how a broker would use that status and what it was designed for. Team functionality. Many of you run teams. For those of you that do run teams, you know that within the Prophesy software historically, there wasn't any formal team support, meaning associating drivers and calculating ETAs based on teams and calculating pay for a team versus a single. So we're going to go through and look at some of the recent enhancements that have been put in the program related to team functionality. Going to look at some ways to integrate the load scheduler and the dispatch board as well. COI requests on the brokerage side, certificate of insurance requests, generating and sending those from the program, how to set them up, how to send them, and where you can send them from in the program. Modifying a posted invoice. As many of you know that have had to modify an invoice in the past, you know that you had to modify that invoice within the dispatch program, and then you had to go into QuickBooks and make the adjustment in QuickBooks as well. Excuse me, an enhancement was made late last year that allows you to modify the invoice within dispatch and also modify the data that's over in QuickBooks, so we'll go through that. I'm going to talk briefly about our SaferWatch integration. That's an optional add-on. I'm also going to talk about our new Rand McNally MobileCom interface. We're not going to demonstrate that. We're going to talk about the new OmniTrax / Qualcomm interface, totally rewritten, a little bit about SkyTrack Mobile, and DriveAxle, which is a mobile document imaging product. So we'll talk about that. So clearly that's a lot of information to go through. Once again, I'm not going to take questions as I go through the items. However, if you have any questions on a specific topic, please jot your question down, and at the end we will have a Q&A session. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing we're going to talk about is how to set up the new email protocol for the SMTP email. Very simple to do. You'll simply go into File, Preferences. You'll come into the System Defaults tab, and the email settings is in your lower right-hand corner. Now, there's always been the ability within the program to set up what default information you would like to email to a driver, assuming you're emailing or texting information to a driver. None of that's changed. You can still set up your default load information. You can set up default goods information. You can set up information you want to send about the assignment to the driver. But this SMTP tab is new. And this is where you activate this email protocol. You would simply check off SMTP. If you require credentials, you'll check that off. And some of you may have to involve your IT person, whether it's somebody you have in-house or an outside IT person, to set this up if you're not familiar with these settings. If you're using a mail system like Google or Yahoo or one of those, if you simply go in and Google SMTP settings Gmail, SMTP settings, it's now called Outlook Mail or Hotmail or Yahoo, you should be able to find all of these settings online. So you'll set up, if you do have a server, what the encryption is. You'll set up the server address, the port that should be used. I suggest when you set it up that you have every email you send out get BCC'd to one of your internal people. That way you'll have a record of that email, when it was sent, and that it was sent successfully. You can go ahead and apply all of these settings to all users if you want to. So that's part of the setup. To complete the setup, you'll simply go to Maintain Users. You'll notice a new column has been added here called Email. We'll go into My Settings. So I can set up my specific email address. I am on a system that does require a password, so I've entered the password. You'll also notice that I'm BCCing this. And then there's another section that's been added here, which is for your signature. Once again, in the past, there was no ability to automatically add a signature to an email. This is text only at this point. You can't add a logo, but when you send an email, it will now automatically put your signature in there. So let's go ahead and take a look at how this would be used, at least in one area of the program. I'm going to go into Document Imaging. I'm in Invoice 1941. Let's say the customer called me and they wanted me to email them the bill of lading. Well, I can simply click Email, just like I would before. One change you're seeing here is it's automatically filling in my signature, as we just discussed. I can type in whatever information I want. I'll hit Send. And now, instead of seeing the pop-up come up, where if you had used Outlook in the past or if you're currently using Outlook, you're not going to see the pop-up. That email has been sent out. It's been BCC'd to me in my email, and you can go on with doing what you were doing. Less steps, simpler, cleaner, very easy to set up. The next topic I want to talk about is integration with QuickBooks. And we're going to talk once again about bringing data back from QuickBooks, what we can bring back, and we're also going to talk about additional data that we can send to QuickBooks. So we're going to go into Accounting. We're going to go to our QuickBooks export and select our company. And I'm simply going to come down here to the right-hand side where it says Settings and select that. Now, many of you have been using the software for quite some time. You may have never gone into this screen. This information may have been set up by the trainer you worked with originally. You may have gone in here with one of our support people, but certainly it's not a portion of the program that you would normally go into. What's been changed in here is on the left-hand side where it says Import from QuickBooks Options. So now I can bring back AR balances from QuickBooks. Why is that important? Well, maybe I want to compare the AR balance to the credit limit. Credit limits have been added to the system. So I can get a warning that a customer is going to exceed a credit limit if I'm booking a load. I can prevent a load from being booked if I'm going to exceed a credit limit. Or maybe I want to have a supervisor override required if it's going to override a credit limit. So you can also bring back credit limits if you have those set up in QuickBooks. If you don't have them set up in QuickBooks, you can set up your credit limits right in the customer master file in Dispatch. Import invoice and payment data. So I'm bringing in payment data right into a load. So historically, all of your AR, and all your AR is still going to be done in QuickBooks, and you're still going to run your receivables report in QuickBooks. But in Dispatch, maybe you want to display, has a load been paid? How long did it take for that load to be paid? Was it paid in full? If you're a brokerage operation or you broker loads, well, or you're searching for a load, a backhaul, you bring up a backhaul search, you go to a load, you click on it. Well, now you can see how long it took somebody to pay you for that load. That may have been a load that you got, off of one of the posting sites. So that information can be extremely valuable to your operations people. Once again, they don't need any access to QuickBooks. It's going to display right in Dispatch, and we'll take a look at how that displays in a minute as well. We can also set up how many days back we want to go. For auto-refreshing, how often do we want to auto-refresh? I've got it set on 1 day. For AP, we can bring that information back too as well. Most people that I see that set up bringing AP back are brokers. They want to bring back payments they've made to motor carriers. So if a carrier calls into operations and is looking for payment on a particular invoice, a dispatcher, as long as the carrier knows the load number, can go to that load number, find it, and that payment information will be displayed. So it doesn't have to go to accounting. Somebody doesn't have to look that up in QuickBooks. And once again, we'll take a look at that as well. So that's an option. If you want to bring back payments to brokers, owner-operators, and lease drivers, you can do that as well. The other has to do with sending information over to QuickBooks. Requests were made. We always sent weight to QuickBooks. We didn't send tons. For those of you that or charging by the ton. You wanted to see tons in QuickBooks. Well, you now have an option to send tons. You would check this off. That would pass tons over to QuickBooks. The detail that went to QuickBooks. We're not trying to make this so that you're actually going to generate your invoices out of QuickBooks, but some people ask for additional information to go into the memo fields or the description fields in a QuickBooks invoice, where you would drill in an AR report, you drill into it, you see it. So historically, we always sent the load number. Well, if you want to send origin destination information, bill of lading, shipper reference, charge descriptions, you can send all that now. Once again, you would check off what you want to send, and that would go over. This is something that it's done in the setup. You're not changing these things dynamically. It's a one-time change. And then as far as your AP bill options as well, you can include additional information as well. Once again, one-time setup, and you're all set with this. So let's take a look at a couple of loads that have this information showing. So I'm just going to search on a load. I'm going to go to load 8597, and we'll just click right there. So we can see for this load 8597, which is for customer Albany distribution, over in the top right-hand corner, I can see the credit limit. I can see the AR balance for this customer. I can see the average days to pay. So if I was booking a new load, this credit limit and AR balance would pop up, and if I was going to exceed the credit limit, well, once again, I could have some of those automatic flags come up. Oh, he's going to exceed the credit limit. Just notify the customer as a warning, or we don't want to book it, so don't let the dispatcher book it, or require a supervisor override, or it could just do nothing at all. Has the invoice been paid? The load been paid? We can see this one's been paid. Now, if it was partially paid, it would say partial. If it was not paid at all, it would say not paid. I'm going to click on that paid button, and now you can see it opens up. I can see the original invoice amount, the date it was invoiced, the date the customer paid me, the days they took to pay, and once again, if it was a partial payment, I would see the remaining balance here. One other thing you're also seeing here that's been added is the actual posted date. We had some requests from customers to display the posted date on a load instead of just the word posted, which made it easier for them to go back and look up some items. I'm going to close this load, and let's do a search now and just bring up a load that shows a carrier that's been paid. So let's say you get a call from the carrier, and they say they haven't been paid yet, haven't received their payment. Well, you can search on that load. Let's go to the assignment, and here it is, and we can see right here that indeed they were paid. And if we click on that, well, first of all, if they weren't paid, it would say not paid, or if they were partially paid, it would say partially paid. If they're paid in full, it's going to say paid. I click on it, it opens up. I can see the QB reference number, the amount they were paid, the balance, the date they were paid, the type of check, and the check number. Now, this bill was paid with one check, check 479. If for some reason you paid it with multiple checks, it would list all of the checks and the payments and the dates that they were made. Very simple to do that. Once again, the operations person doesn't need any access to QuickBooks. And all of these items we're talking about here, through the user security, you control people if you want them to be able to do this, want them to see it, don't want them to see it. So don't think that all of a sudden you put an update in and all these things are going to become visible to all users. It's all tied into user security. Customer-specific invoices is the next topic we want to talk about today. And just as a reminder, where you set up your invoices and preferences and billing defaults, freight bill type, detailed freight bill type, detailed master bill type is selected right there. And traditionally, if I went in for any customer to run an invoice, it's going to use a regular invoice, it's going to be a freight bill, master invoice is going to be the detailed master bill 3. Well, some customers wanted to have a specific invoice for a specific customer. Maybe it's one they had us custom create for that customer because they needed some special information. Maybe they just want to send them a very simple invoice. Well, what you can do now is go into maintain your customer shipper consignees, and down in the charge section, you're going to see added freight bill type. And you can see for this customer, I've selected basic freight bill type. All of your freight bills will be listed here, So when I generate an invoice for 31W, instead of it using the detailed freight bill, which is my standard or my default freight bill, it's going to use a basic freight bill. Simple change, however, one that in the past was pretty cumbersome if you wanted to change the freight bill for just one customer. The next item on our list today has to do with settlements and simplifying a few things in settlements and giving you some more options in settlements. So I'm just going to go to accounting, and I'm going to go to the settlement profile. Once again, this is one of those screens that I find that people go into during their implementation and training. Generally, you probably haven't been back here since, maybe once in a while with a support person, or if you had some advanced training, you may have. But the specific item I want to talk about here is NTAs. This is another example of an item that was suggested by a couple of customers, and I tell people all the time that's how our development works. So if you have ideas, et cetera, please email those into us. But the customer or the customers requested the ability to auto-select NTAs based on load date filters. So what most of you probably have selected if you're giving NTAs today is always select any NTA for posting. The positive thing to that is that the NTAs are going to display automatically. The downside to that is if you're doing if you're paying your drivers for a pay period, let's say from the 1st of the month to the 8th of the month, well, any NTA is going to display, whether it was given after the 8th or not. However, if you now auto-select NTAs based on the load date filters, and you select those load date filters when you're doing your payroll, well, now you're only going to see NTAs that fall within that pay period, and they'll be auto-selected. You won't have to worry about going back and checking those. Should save you a tremendous amount of time on doing your settlements. Another item within the settlements that's been enhanced is what actually displays on the settlement report that you're giving to your drivers. So let's take a look at how you would do that. I'm just going to select this one load. I'm going to click on print, and we're going to go ahead and take a look at our report options. This is another screen that you probably don't go into on a regular basis. It was either set up during your implementation. You may have changed it once or twice, but you generally would not come back here. Well, let's go through some of these fields and talk about what's been added. Some of the things that have always been there is stop detail for each load, either display or not to display duplicate points. How do you want to sort? Do you want to sort by load number, by ship date, by delivery date, showing equipment or not showing equipment, showing earnings detail or no detail, over and under and advances, fuel import transaction details, company resource advance amounts, year-to-date totals was something that was added sometime last year. And then we added these advanced options. And we added these because people came to us and said, well, you know, I want to show this, I don't want to show this. So now you can almost take it on a per item by item basis. Miles, rates, units, weights, pallets, tons, notes, reference numbers. If you want to display them, you can display them. If you don't want to display them, you would uncheck them and they will not display. Once again, this is not something that we find that people are going in and dynamically changing as they're processing their settlements. They're setting these items up and they're just leaving them the way they are. But you have many, many more options as far as how to set those items up today than you had in the past. Let's just cancel out of here. And we're going to move on to our next topic today, which is fuel surcharges, and how to set up fuel surcharges with using the new fuel surcharge indexes rather than the old way where you would create a fuel surcharge as part of a rate schedule. So the first thing I want to show you here is how to automate bringing in the fuel surcharge index information. So you go to File Preferences, Rating Defaults. On the bottom, you're going to see this URL is going to be filled in, and it's going to be Update Fuel Indexes, and you want to select Automatic Download. What this will do is every Monday afternoon, or if it's a holiday week like this week was on Tuesday, the system is automatically going to go out and download all of the indexes that the government publishes on a weekly basis. And it's going to auto-populate in your system. And let's take a look at those. We'll go to rating, and we'll go to fuel price indexes. And you can see here, going back several weeks, months, here's all the updates that came in based on the national index. I can go to East Coast and see East Coast. All of the index prices are all here. So the next thing that you would want to do is you'd want to go in and you'd want to create a fuel surcharge matrix. So we'll come into rating, and let's look at one that I've already created. So we'll simply go to fuel surcharges. And here's one that I created that's based on a percentage of revenue. And you can see it's based on the pickup date. You do have some options there if you want to do it call date or drop date. It's a rate percent. It gets updated weekly, and its effective date is the third day. If you look in the lower left-hand corner, and this is another tip for those of you that may not have been using the system for a while, but there is micro help in the lower left. So it will always tell you if you're clicked on a specific field or in a specific screen. If there's some information that we think is going to help you out, we will put it there. So if I click here under effective day, notice the micro help down the bottom says choose the number of days into the update period the surcharge takes effect. For weekly periods, day 1 is Sunday. So if Sunday's day 1, Monday's day 2, Tuesday day 3. Once again, we find most customers that are updating weekly are updating on Tuesday, so I've got it set for the third day. I am using the national index, and this is a very simple matrix I've got set up. I'm saying up to $2.75 per gallon, there's no surcharge. From $2.75 to $3, it's 33%. From $3 to $3.25, it's 35%, and so on and so forth. You can add as much detail as you want to that. You simply right-click, you click Add Detail, and you can add as many detail lines as you want. You then simply go to a rate schedule and associate this fuel surcharge with that rate schedule. So let's just go into our rate schedules, and let's just look up one of these rate schedules. And you'll notice here under fuel surcharge 1, I've got the Albany distribution percentage. You'll also notice that you actually have the ability to associate 2 fuel surcharges with this rate schedule. The reason for that is for those of you that are pulling reefers, you may want to have one fuel surcharge for your tractor and a second fuel surcharge at a different rate for the reefer unit itself. Once again, all of that is automated. You don't have to worry about going in, updating the surcharges the way you had to before. We had to go in and define the period and change it manually every week if something changed. Everything is done for you automatically. The next topic that we have to talk about today is a new status that we added called pre-assign. The reason this was added was from a planning standpoint. Customers said to us, you know, when we go through our planning, we don't want to show something that's assigned. We want to say it's pre-assigned, which means my operations people are still deciding what loads those drivers should be on, or we don't actually consider it assigned until we talk to the driver because we give them an option. So that was one reason for adding the pre-assignment, or one way that you can use it. The second was for Mobilecom customers. For those of you that are using OmniTrax, RAND, PeopleNet, Teletrack, using our own application called SkyTrack, which runs on the Android phone. You know there's 2 ways to send loads to drivers today, or there were before the pre-assignment. One was you could have the system poll every X number of minutes to look for new loads or changes, and it would automatically send those out. Or 2, you could configure the system so it did not send loads out until you went into operations, mobile communications, selected the loads, and actually sent them out to the tractor or to the driver. Well, if you're using the pre-assignment feature, nothing gets sent to Mobilecom. So if you have the system set up where it automatically sends loads out, but you're doing planning, so you don't want the load to go out because you're still in a planning phase, leave it as pre-assigned. It won't get queued up for MobileCom. Once you go ahead and save it as assigned, it will get queued up for MobileCom and automatically be sent out to the driver based on your settings in your system. From a brokerage standpoint, pre-assignment, what uses does that have for you? Well, brokers would come to us and they'd say, we want a way in the system to tell that we've made a deal with a carrier to haul the load. However, we're waiting for paperwork to come back from them. It may be we're simply waiting to get the carrier confirmation signed and come back, or maybe we've sent them an entire carrier packet and we need to get that back. Well, you put it in a pre-assigned status, and then you know that you have not received all the required paperwork back from that load. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Let's simply go to our dispatch board, and let's pick, we'll pick a load. We'll pick this load 4149. I'm going to hit F11 just to bring up my assignment screen. And let's say I just want to assign or pre-assign a carrier to this load. Well, I can click pre-assign right there, and if I then go ahead and assign a carrier to the load, and we'll close that, you can see now it's in a pre-assigned status. If I did the same thing, let's pull that off. Let's remove that resource. And let's go ahead and do a new assignment, but this time let's go ahead and pre-assign a driver, and we'll also put a trailer on that load. Once again, all pre-assigned. And let's go ahead and close that and come back over to our assign loads. So now on the assign loads board, within the assign loads, we can see our default color, which is that salmon color. However, that load 4149 is showing up in this bright pink, and over here to the right, I am showing you the pre-assigned where it says yes. So if you want to see that on your board, you can customize your board by right-clicking and selecting what you want to view. You can see that item, and we can see that it's bright pink. Now, if we've confirmed that assignment, or if it was a MobileCom driver, we want to go ahead and release it, or if it was a motor carrier and we've received all the paperwork back and we just want to go ahead and confirm that it's assigned, well, we can highlight the load, click on status, the next status is assigned, click OK, and now that load is assigned. And you would simply continue through the system the way you normally would. The pre-assigned status is also available on the load scheduler. You can also use the pre-assigned status if you're splitting your screen and you're dragging drivers or carriers from the bottom up to pending loads. It will work any way that you do your assignment. So I'm just going to change this load back to pending and take all those resources off it, and it's back the way it was. So that is the pre-assigned feature that's been added to the system. And that's on by default. There's nothing that you have to do special to activate that. The next item I want to talk about is team functionality. For those of you that run teams, you know that when doing your assignments, you had to assign both drivers separately. There was also a concern with many of you that the ETA that was being calculated for the load was not accurate because it wasn't considering that there was a team on there. You also had to go in and change, if sometimes you ran a team and sometimes you didn't, you had to go in and change the pay rate and to make sure you're paying that driver at the right rate based on a team instead of an individual pay rate. Well, what we've added here, and once again, this will be on by default, so you can just go in and set it up. There's nothing special. Let's just go in to maintain drivers, and let's go to driver Davis. The change that's been made that you'll notice is here on the payments grid. You always had a loaded mile rate and an empty mile rate. That's as a single. However, we've now added team rates. We have a loaded mile team rate, also added an empty mile team rate. So you can actually, if you just run teams, you'll just set up the team rate. If a driver could run both as a single and as a team, you can set up both rates. If you assign the driver as a single, it's going to automatically pull the single rate. If you assign that driver to a load as part of a team, it's going to automatically pull the team rate as long as this box that's checked here that says Run Team is selected, and that can be selected from here. You'll also see it on the assignment screen. So you check off that he is a team. I'm going to make Davis. Davis is set up as part of a team right now, so it's checked off. I've also selected his partner, who is Flynn, and I've reserved a tractor for the team. Let's go over to driver Flynn's file. And we can see, I just so happen to have them set up at the same rates, but you can see his partner is Davis, and you can see the tractor that's reserved is 04CT. So from using that, let's go over and pick a load, and let's just go ahead and do an assignment. And let's just pick driver Davis and close that. So we can see now that when I assign driver Davis, automatically the system assigned driver Flynn. It also automatically assigned the tractor. And if I wanted to click the pay button to calculate the pay, you'll see that driver Davis's pay has been calculated based on the team, and driver Flynn's pay has been calculated as part of the team. You also notice here's the pay as a team box that I talked about that was in the driver file and is also here on the assignment screen is checked off. As far as managing this load, you would do it the same way you normally would as a single or the same way that you're managing it today as a team. The other thing that you can expose that I find some people don't realize is on the assignment, on the dispatch board itself, you can show both driver. You can show driver 1 and driver 2 if you want to see both of them on the board. So let's just go ahead and right-click and let's clear these resources from that load. And that's the team functionality that's been added. Once again, if there's any questions on any of these subjects that we're covering today, if you'd please make a note as we go through, and we will have a Q&A at the end. The dispatch board and the load scheduler. I'm going to bring the board up. I'm going to bring the load scheduler up, and I'm going to go to Window, and I'm going to say Tile them horizontal. At our users group in Chicago this past September, this was another item that was discussed there was the load scheduler. And there were requests from customers at that point to show more information on the load scheduler. And it's not a request that just happened there. It certainly has happened a number of times before that. People asked about over here where the pending loads are. They wanted to put date filters over here. Or they wanted to see any special equipment that was required for that load. And we had a real estate problem there as far as how to get all that information into this little space on the load scheduler. So what our developers did was they gave you the ability to go ahead and drag and drop from the dispatch board onto the load scheduler and vice versa. So I can come here and have my load schedule up top, and let's say I want to assign this load 4149 to a driver. I can simply click, drag, drop it on the driver I want to assign it to. Once again, if I want to pre-assign it, I can pre-assign it, as we talked about just a few minutes ago. I'm going to click OK to go ahead and assign it. It's going to confirm the assignment, and we'll come up here and scroll down, and now we can see that driver Peters is on load 6049, and now he's assigned to load 4149. If you change your mind, just like you would today, you can always right-click, change the status back to pending, say yes. They both refresh, and now we can see that load 4149 is back up here, and it's back down here on the dispatch board. The real advantage, once again, getting back here, is why we did this is on the dispatch board, obviously, you can display a lot more information. So if I wanted to show equipment type or some other information, you know that you can always right-click and go to Customize View, and then I can select what data I want to display in every view on the dispatch board, the pending load just being one of them. The other item that was done in the load schedule itself was the ability to print it. Once again, if you just come up here, hit print, many people will print this out, take it home with them. They can see what assignments, who's assigned to what loads are pending. So if they get calls from drivers in off hours, they can go ahead and use that printout to do their assignments. Moving along from a brokerage standpoint, certificate of insurance requests. The ability to request a COI directly from the insurance carrier from the program. To set this up, you want to do two things. First, you want to go to Preferences, and you'll go to your system defaults, and you'll click on COI request text. By default, this would be blank. When you come in here the first time, you'll click default text. It'll set up the default text. If you want to change any of it, you can change any of it. If you want to change some of the verbiage, an email, a phone number, once again, all this information is being pulled as far as emails, phone, fax numbers, etc., from your default settings in the system. So then how do you actually use that? Well, you can go into a carrier file, and let's just pick one carrier here, and go into Insurance, Modify, and as long as you filled in a contact, an email, or a fax number, these buttons over here will be valid to request a COI. So if I want to email a COI request to AGT Insurance from right here, I can simply click Email, and it automatically fills in that email address. It tells them I'm requesting a cert for the carrier name, their MC number, fills in the verbiage, I hit Send, and once again it's going to use the email SMTP, and it's going to send it right out. If you have our optional eFax integration, you can click Fax, and you can send this out right through eFax. If you wanted to print it out instead of emailing or faxing, you could just go ahead and print out the request and then fax it manually if you wanted to. The other place where you can access the COI request from is if you're doing an assignment and you see that the insurance is in a warning state. So let's just go ahead to our assignment screen real quick. And here we can see the yellow X's, which are warnings. So if we wanted to go ahead and send that COI, we could right-click and just say request the COI. It pulls that box, and go ahead and email it or fax it or print it out, and you're doing it from right there. You don't have to drill right into the carrier file to generate that COI. Modifying a posted invoice. Once again, as you know, historically, to modify a posted invoice, you had to make the change in the dispatch program and then go into reprint the invoice if you choose to, and then go into QuickBooks and make the change. That can all be done in one process now. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go to QuickBooks, and I want to show you an invoice that's over here, and we're going to look at invoice number 8627 that has already been sent over here to QuickBooks. And we can see the total is $5843.70. The important thing here is that we haven't received any payments against this invoice. So the scenario we're talking about here mainly is you've emailed a customer, or you've sent an invoice to a customer, and they've called you because they feel that they've been overcharged. So you've reviewed that invoice and you've agreed with them, yes, indeed, we overcharged you, so let's make that correction. So we're going to go to Accounting, we're going to go to Print Post Freight Bills. We're going to come up here and we're going to look at ones that were previously posted. And we're simply going to search for that invoice that we want to modify. And the invoice we want to modify in this case is 8627. So we'll go ahead and search for it. Here it is. We'll select it. And now we're going to right-click on it, and we're going to say Reverse the Freight Bill. And it's going to ask us, do we really want to do that? Yes, we do. It's going to bring it up. Now I can come in and make my change. So maybe we agreed to move this load for $1.50 a mile instead of that $1.65. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. I'm going to close it. A reverse transaction for the invoice has been posted to accounting, and the bill is now available for reposting. So we'll click OK there. We'll come over to we're going to come over and we're going to refilter this, and we're going to filter it on eligible to post, and we're going to go ahead and select that invoice 8627 right there. Let's just go ahead and select it. Let's go ahead and print that invoice. Here you can see it's printing with the new rate. And we'll just say we printed it. We'll say it did print. Yes, it did. And let's go ahead and post it. And we'll now run our integration over to QuickBooks. And we'll go into QuickBooks. We'll go back to that customer, Albany. And now we can see there's actually two entries for invoice 8627. The first one is the invoice that's been voided out. So you retain that audit trail. We're not just going to make it disappear. The second one is the reposted one with the correct amount that that customer is going to pay you. So instead of having to do it in a two-step process the way you used to do it, you'll do it in a one-step process. We're running a little bit short on time here. The next item I was going to talk about was going to be our SaferWatch integration. We'll probably do a separate webinar on SaferWatch or with some other items as well, but SaferWatch is an integration which does all your carrier safety monitoring, management, ability to add a carrier automatically, and do all your due diligence from a brokerage side. But once again, we'll do a separate session on that. I do want to quickly mention we did an integration with Rand McNally over last summer. We've had a large number of customers that are using Rand McNally, have purchased the integration, have implemented the integration, and are extremely happy with not only the integration, but with the service that they're getting from Rand McNally Mobilecom system. Today, we do support all of the forms messaging along with free-form messaging. We will do an integration with their HOS module eventually, and there is, for those of you using Rand McNally that are on the line today, there's an enhancement that is coming out in the next 30 days for those using the navigation feature on Rand McNally, that when you send the load to the Rand McNally device, the points will go to the navigation as well, so the driver will not have to manually enter those points into navigation. So it'll simplify that process. With Omnitrax, company formerly known as Qualcomm, we totally rewrote our interface to Omnitrax in the second quarter of last year. For those of you that are still using the older integration, I would encourage you to get in touch with us to convert over to the new integration. The new integration is much more flexible. It uses the macros within Qualcomm. There are many standard macros that you can use. There are additional macros and functionality, drop and hook trailers, check call macros. Macros can be customized if you choose for an additional fee. The same is true with Rand McNally. On their forms, they can be customized. But it offers you a lot more features than you have today. Once again, I would encourage you to make the switch to the new integration with Qualcomm. The last item I want to talk about today is a mobile document imaging product that we interfaced to last year called DriveAxle. DriveAxle is an app that runs on either an Android or an iOS device, whether it's a phone or a tablet. You subscribe to DriveAxle through us. There's a minimal fee per month, and you also purchase our interface, so it is an add-on. Very simple to set up. You do need our document imaging module for DriveAxle to work, but to set it up, you would simply go to Preferences, go to Mobile Image Settings. You would enter the information that DriveAxle sends you for your account. You'll come over here to the DriveAxle tab, and you'll map the items that are coming in from DriveAxle to a specific document type within Dispatch. So a driver takes an image of a bill of lading on his iOS device or Android device. On the app, the driver would check off it's a bill of lading. He would enter the load number, hit send. That image gets sent directly to the DriveAxle server. That's kind of where the magic occurs, if you will, because that image will get dramatically cleaned up from what it looked like on the phone to what you eventually see coming into Dispatch. Dispatch will automatically reach out as quickly as every 5 minutes, and any images that are sitting on the DriveAxle server will come right into your Dispatch system. Those images will automatically be indexed onto the load and image type that you've specified, saving you not only from waiting for those documents to come back when the driver comes back, or maybe the driver goes into the truck stop and has them scanned or faxes them, but these are going to come back right away. They're going to be filed and indexed right in your Prophesy system. And to see an example of an image that came back, let's go into document imaging, and let's look at load 8514. And under reference note, you can see drive axle. That means that that image came in via drive axle, and I'll just double click on it to bring it up. And you can see this was taken actually with my Android phone. Anybody that's taking pictures with an Android phone, at least one that's not the newest one, you know, they're a little bit dark in places, but you can see how bright this is. It looks like I scanned it right in my office. Once again, that's the magic on the drive axle server doing that. Not only does it increase, you know, you getting the paperwork back, you can invoice more faster, but also driver satisfaction from getting all that back and not having to worry about sending it or standing around the truck stop or faxing things in a truck stop. Just much easier for them. So that's how it comes back, where it shows up in the system. Once again, very simple process with drive axle. There is, by the way, we are running a special this month. I'm sure many of you saw the emails on the interface to drive axle. So if that's something you're interested in, you can follow up with me or, once again, with whoever your account manager is. So what have we reviewed today? Actually, several items. We reviewed the email settings, integration with QuickBooks, both sending and receiving data, customer-specific invoices, some settlement enhancements, fuel surcharge enhancements, pre-assignment, team functionality, load scheduler dispatch board, certificate of insurance requests, modifying posted invoices, talked about the Safer Watch integration, Ram McNally, OmniTrax. A little bit I'd mentioned our SkyTrack mobile application that runs on the Android system, similar to a RAND or an OmniTrax, and once again, drive axle, which we just talked about. If you're interested in learning more about this and you want to take a more in-depth dive, if you will, you can always sign up for advanced training with our implementation and training team. You can contact your account manager to learn more about that. Training is available here in Connecticut, web-based training. We go to your location, and that's customized to meet your needs. Also, if you want to jot down on your calendars, I know we had about 50 of 200 plus people at the Excelos Prophesy user group last year in Chicago. This year it is coming up in September, and it will be held in Denver, Colorado. We take the approach that it's like 100% training for the Prophesy customers. So it's a really intense training course on all different facets of the program. The other thing I would encourage you is, if there's anything I did not cover today that you would like to see covered in a future session, please send us an email, send me an email, and we'll be sure to cover that. I want to thank all of you for attending today's session. I want to thank you for your business. And if there's anything we can do for you, both in a training session in the future or something you'd like to see in the product, please be sure to contact us either by phone or email. Those of you that were asking for my email address, you're seeing it on the screen right now. Jot that down. Shoot me your contact information with the subject of what we discussed, and either myself or somebody else will follow up with you. Once again, thank you for attending, and everybody have a fantastic day.